and welcome to Political Paradigm. I'm Terry Ikumi. Today I'm joined by the Senator representing Ogun East in the Senate and former Governor of Ogun State from 2003 to 2011, Senator Gbenga Daniel.
Good morning, Terry, and good morning, viewers.
I'd like us to begin with the Southwest Development Commission. I recall that you were one of the most excited persons when that bill was signed into law by the president. You described it as a hard fight that was worth its while. Could you talk to us about why this commission is so important to the Southwest?
Well, if you look at the trajectory of our country, where we are coming from, it will not be difficult for you to find out that basically this country emerged from various regions. These regions have commonalities in terms of culture, in terms of their economic development and positioning, in terms of their natural resources, in terms of their human resources. For instance, it was common knowledge that the northern region was quite unique in terms of the resources they put on the table, the height and skin, livestock, agriculture, and things like that. And that has been the basis of their unbridled development over the years. Ditto for the southeast, we know that the coal of Enugu and things like that, And not only that, we know that our brothers from the southeast are quite sophisticated in terms of trade and industry. If you come to Southwest, the first thing with our people is education, and then industry and things like that. So, and everybody felt that has really helped in terms of the development evolution of our great country. Fast forward to where we are, we're now having 36 states and the FCT. Of course, those also have their various advantages. But be that as it may, the regions have commonalities of interest. And if you look at the trajectory of development all over the world, you'll see that it's based on the strengths, of those areas. And coming back to where we are today, if you look at the present, where he's coming from, his trajectory as a progressive, it's about looking at commonalities amongst the people. And then for us in the Southwest, when I started this idea, for instance, because, in the Niger Delta, we know the challenges that are there: oil pollution, destruction of agriculture. In the Northeast, it's basically about security, Boko Haram, and all of that. And people were wondering, what is it that the problem is with the Southwest? Some people told me that you are more than developed. And I said, not quite. The migration of people from all over the country is basically towards Lagos. And that is now extended to Ogun State, to Oyo State, to Osun State, and all of those places. That has put a lot of strain on the infrastructure that is there. In fact, when I did my projection in preparing this bill, it's clear that in another 25 years, the population of Southwest will be looking more like about 50 million people. That was the population of Nigeria at independence, when we were declared to be about 56 million people. How do we cope with this infrastructure? So we need wider roads. We need serious railway network. We need massive housing estate. We need to begin to work against the environmental degradation which is staring us in the face. And those are the points that we're able to put together. And luckily, a large number of people in the National Assembly bought into the idea. And when the president finally signed for expectedly, I was one of the most excited that finally this thing have come to pass. I didn't start it. I know that there was an attempt at the Ninth Assembly and the Ninth Senate and other attempts before then. But I'm just happy that, this one that we finally midwife finally have become conclusive. I'm so excited.
Okay, so I like that you say that it had failed in the previous assembly. And the reason for that failure in the previous assembly was that the Southwest didn't really need a development commission. As a matter of fact, the argument that all the regions do not need a regional development commission. The Niger Delta Development Commission was created for a specific purpose, as you mentioned, and so to the Northeast. And now the people of the Southeast also said they needed a development commission because of the civil war. Create a balance between the importance of the South-West Development Commission and those who would fear that this is just going to be an excuse for governors to abandon their responsibilities.
No, not quite. First, we need to appreciate that our country is a very big country. Now we are the most populous in Africa, and in a nation, in a continent where most of the countries are still developing. I do not subscribe to the idea that we are overgoverned. Not exactly. We all need to have hands on deck. I've just explained to you the challenges that we see here. A few years ago, the population of Lagos was no more than about 3-4 million people. Now it's looking like 26 million. I mean, look at that. In the span of about 20 years, you've had this kind of explosion. Where are we going to go if we don't begin to plan? And what I'm saying is that, in fact, that's even much stronger than some of the other things that people have mentioned about. Maybe it's not as crystal clear for the ordinary eye, but when you begin to look at things in terms of what is coming, you are going to create a big slump here if you don't plan it well.
I know you have expectations, but it's also coming on the heels of the oil exploration in Ogun State. So how impactful do you expect this to be? The oil exploration in the Ogun State, if it is eventually, sees the light of day, and then the Southwest Development Commission?
Well, we thank God. We've been at this in a long time. And I'll tell you what most people may not also know. The oil belt between Ondo, Ogun State, where that goes to Edo and all of those, is the same oil belt. Oil is liquid, it's not solid. And when Ondo State was being declared as an oil producing state, Ogun State should have been at that time. I stumbled into studies, specifically from some of the oil major companies, where they have already decided, they know where all the oil deposits are. The rest is just exploration and aggressive exploration. So if you look at some of those studies, you know that a large chunk of oil, Ogun State is an oil state. There's no question about that. But you know there's politics in everything. There is envy. There's all sorts of game that goes on. The politics of oil is a major international cartel.
Yeah,
and there are so many angles to it. But what I can tell you, even while I was governor, there was an OML in Ogun State. And now I'm told that is now an OPL. So some people are already exploring oil in commercial quantity in Ogun State. In Ogun State, there is really no question about it. In fact, I dare say that over the years, probably because we have not been very aggressive, we should have been without any equation declared an oil producing state in a long, long while.
You said something about the politics of it, and some would say there's a curse of oil in Nigeria. It goes far back as before oil was discovered in Nigeria, and how a lot of other options for generating revenue were abandoned because of oil. And Ogun State is particularly known for its agricultural production, which is also another reason why the governor is building the agro-cargo airport. So when you look at this new oil frontier and agriculture, would anyone be right to say that there could be possible fears that agriculture, which is a major stay for Ogun State, could likely be abandoned?
No, not exactly. Quite on the contrary. I'm one person who believes very strongly too that a country that cannot feed itself should really be ashamed. We are lucky, without any doubt, in Ogun State and in Nigeria. Everything is there for us. The land resources is there. Ogun State remains very, very strong agrarian sector. You will have seen now that giant leaps have been made in Ogun State. You know what has happened to our IGR. These are deliberate plans that have been put in place, which by the grace of God we are now benefiting from.
Well, that's beautiful. And so that brings me to the concerns around the living standard of the people in Ogun State. I'd like for you to assess Ogun State since you left office, because I recall that one of the things you were most proud about was I think transforming, as you put it, Ogun State from a civil service state to a more industrialized state. But then the concerns now are that the latest statistics on unemployment shows that Ogun State is sixth from bottom, I think 8.8%. And the question is, with Ogun State being the second most industrialized state in Nigeria, just after Lagos, neighbors to Lagos, what is the problem with attending to the unemployment numbers in Ogun State over the years?
First, I disagree completely with your statistics. That can simply not be true. We are not there yet, but on a more serious note, I can say to you unequivocally that Ogun State is doing well. I do know, and maybe the perception that you have might be stemming from the number of higher institutions that we have and the number of graduates that we're churning out. At the last count, government-owned tertiary institutions in Ogun State are nearly a dozen. Private owned, of course, Ogun State has the honor of hosting the largest number of private tertiary institutions in Nigeria. At the last count, even before I left, there were probably close to 20. Okay, so which effectively means that every year, if you look at it at an average of about maybe 2,000, even 1,000 graduates per institution, it means that from Ogun State alone, some, God knows what, 30 times 1,000.
Some more graduates than can be employed.
Yes, yes. The real issue is the orientation which we are now putting in place in terms of what people should study in school. Because of the evolution of the colonial experience that we've had, we're still busy looking at white-collar jobs. For instance, when I had the opportunity of superintending over the state, we took a decision that Africa lost out in the Industrial Revolution. And we thought that the evolution that was there at that time was ICT. So we went out of our way and established 4 ICT-based polytechnics. 4. And we were sure in terms of what they churn out, not just necessarily the usual ONDH, no. We said they had to go for Cisco certification. And quite a number of them went for that Cisco certification and became employable all over the world. You know, quite on the contrary, what we've used to doing, everybody wants to go and study business administration, psychology, philosophy, and things like that, which presents you for white-collar jobs. Those jobs are no longer there. So my own position, therefore, is that we should begin to retool the kind of people we churn out to be able to respond to the challenges of development. What we need to do today in our country is infrastructural development. How many people do we have who can actually construct roads? You go to elsewhere in Europe, it's a taboo to find any road that is not tarred, especially one that goes to farmland. Here it is a taboo to find roads that are tarred. It is indeed a luxury to say, well, and of course, when governors were able to tar road, it's celebration galore. Those are things that are normal that people should not even talk about, that you're tarring roads. But because of the level of our underdevelopment, these are the sort of things that we're celebrating. What do I say? It is time for us to reorientate our education. There are jobs out there, but there are no qualified people to do the jobs. I give you one small example. Quickly, I was in England recently, and a friend of ours had a plumbing job, leakages in the house. And so they called the plumber. The plumber was sitting outside in a Rolls Royce. He asked his son to go and bring the plumber in. His son looked and looked, said, there's no plumber there. Because he was looking for one rugged-looking man with tools. And after they called again, said, I've been here, waiting in the car for the past 30 minutes. So the young man went there and found a smart guy, well-kitted, sitting in a BMW car. And he came out with his tool with pride. Where is the problem? Within 1 hour, it's done. To call him out was about 200 pounds. And the job he's done is about an hour. He charges per hour. He can afford to ride that car, even in England, as a plumber. It is the contrary here. Plumber, those ones are the wretched of the earth. They can do nothing. So we need to change completely our rotation, because that is where the job is. It's no longer in the offices. In any case, office job is fast disappearing. Every job, the office is now on the phone, on the laptop, on the iPad. That's where the office is. And that's why many people even today are even working from home. So the concept of white-collar jobs, whether we like it or not, I don't know about you, Terry. You are, great people. It's fast disappearing, and that's the reality of the situation. Construction is my hobby, so I do a lot of construction. The amount that it costs to hire artisans now is far more than what white-collar jobbers are earning.
You mean the street artisans, the ones that will pick on the road to go do some
construction at that, work? You can't get a bricklayer now. The raise they charge is something that's looking between minimum 5,000 to 10,000 per day.
But still, regardless.
So 5,000 per day is 300,000 per annum.
But when you compare that to the cost of living, it's almost
but compare that
nothing.
To the minimum wage of 70,000. So that bricklayer earns 10,000 per day, which is about 300,000 in a month, versus that white-collar minimum person who is being paid 70,000. If you begin to say cost of living, yes, I agree, but that's how it starts. Which means that I know quite a number of people who, having graduated, have begun to learn some of these trades and are making a lot of money from there. So it is an orientation problem.
How do you respond to those who say that what the National Assembly is doing is proliferation of universities instead of ensuring that existing universities churn out the right graduates with requisite skills? And by that I mean equipping these schools.
Well, I have a problem there, because if I want to express my personal opinion, I agree with you. I agree with you entirely. And what I have done, even when I had the opportunity to do things like that as governor, I had always looked at possibilities of using the existing infrastructure. For instance, when we started the Tai Solarin University of Education, we didn't go for a greenfield. There was Tai Solarin College of Education. They had a location which we think was a lot more than what they needed. So we moved those ones to a secondary school, develop that secondary school to take that institution. And from that place where they used to be, we created Tai Solarin University of Education. For instance, one of the best polytechnics in Ogun State today, the Gateway ICT Polytechnic in Shapade, which I founded, we had issues also. We couldn't do greenfield. We didn't have the resources. So there was a place called Shapade Grammar School. So we went to the other side and we built a place for them and took over Shapade Grammar School, and that's where we have started what is now probably the second best polytechnic in Ogun State today, the Gateway Polytechnic. So I really wonder when my colleagues come that they want to do some of these things, greenfield. I need to be educated where the resources are coming from, whether there is indeed a need for it. But having said that, it is also the other side of democracy, because the people who are sitting in the National Assembly are not representing themselves. So they have pressure from home. It's still part of the orientation problem that I'm talking about. The pressure from home is that we've sent you here, there. These are our demands. And when you look at the idea of democracy, probably they don't also have any choice but to say, okay, what you've asked us to do, we have done our bit, we've done it at the Senate, it's now left for the federal government to find the money to fund it. If they find it, fine. If they don't find it, they will have said that they've done. So that's probably some of the drawbacks of democracy, that people at the National Assembly, whether you like it or not, have no choice but to respond to the demands of the people who put them there.
Now we're talking about the Senate. I'd like to get your experience because unlike other governors, you didn't go straight to the Senate after you left office. 12 years later, you're in the Senate now. What's your experience been like in the Senate?
Well, first, after 8 years as governor, it was important for me to step back and to see what happens next. Regrettably, that does not appear to be the same for many of our colleagues. They seem to believe that they cannot have any life after government. So they want to come from this. They don't even want to even relax. When you do something, you need feedbacks. Okay, you've been a governor for 8 years. You need to sit back and see and review what has been the impact of these 8 years. Is that something you'll have done better? Okay, you cannot be governor again. Is there any other opportunity where you can make things happen? That for me is the way it should be. And maybe because I have a second address, I call myself a professional in politics. That's something I enjoy doing. It's engineering. It's elevator engineering. That's my first love. Politics is a way to further help, as it were, the people. So that's where I'm coming from. So it wasn't therefore too important for me to say I'm coming from. You will be shocked that on 3 different occasions I was offered the senatorial post. In 2011, the then President Jonathan sent a delegation to me to ask me to come to the Senate. In 2015, the same thing happened. In 2019, the same thing happened.
But why did you turn them all down?
Various circumstances. For instance, in 2011, I was running the Southwest campaign for President Jonathan. And I thought that, look, let me concentrate on that instead of, In 2015, yes, I was also busy. In 2019, I was running at Atiku Abubak's campaign as his DG. And I think that whatever you are doing, concentrate upon it. Atiku Abubakar had a challenge. He has never won. He's tried so many times and all of that. I said, this time around, he approached me, appointed me as DG, and it was a lot of work.
But on that, do you have any regrets? Because I think you were not happy to be dropped as campaign director
No.
Because you had forgone your senatorial ambition to be his campaign
You see,
director.
there's a tide in the affairs of man. Look, in the course of running that campaign, I went through all the 36 states of this country twice. First, I told my principal, Atiku Abubakar, I said, I don't know how politics is played, but for me, even before the primaries, you need to go around. Physically, present yourself to everybody, to all the parties, parties, all the states. So we hopped on the road and we went through 36 states. And then we went to Port Harcourt, and it was a hell of a war. And the crowning of that campaign was that 13 people contested for that presidential ticket. And Atiku Abubakar won. All the 13 of them were seated. And as DG, I said, look, Oga, you need to go around before they make this announcement. I've already seen it. We have already won. The counting will soon complete, but please go around and talk to your colleagues. When you have been announced, all of them should follow you and stand with you as you deliver your acceptance speech. And that was precisely what happened. Everybody followed him. For me, I've done my job. That was the peak. The next assignment was to now do the re-campaign all over the country. And in the view of the management, they changed the structure. I wasn't dropped. They said Bukola Saraki was the Senate president. He was very much interested to take over the campaign. And they now said I should take over Southwest, which is 17, as deputy DG, 17 states. Kwakwaso was given the north, not Southwest, the South, the entire South, all the 3 states, all the 3 regions in the South. That was my take. Southwest, Southeast, South-South. Then Kwankwaso was given all the three regions in the north. So the campaign was restructured, and because Bukola Saraki was a sitting Senate president, it's only, right that he had all the apparatus, even as state president, to run the campaign. So that was what happened. People felt that I was not happy. No, not quite. I think that's the best that could happen at that time. And we did what we had to do. The rest did now say is history. I hope I've clarified that.
Well, I hope you have. But then again, I think a lot of people will still wonder what's.
I think people just felt that I did such a wonderful job, and they said
you should continue
winning. What do they call it now? You don't change a winning team. That kind of thing was the story. But I, as an insider, I knew what was going on. And I knew that probably it was the best that could happen at that time.
Well, and a lot of people will still wonder what sort of relationship you share with Atiku at this point, because he still has the ambition to be president. You believe he would make a good president, but I dare say that your loyalty now is to your party, the APC, and the president. So what sort of relationship do you share with him? And what are your thoughts on his ambition?
Well, I think even while I was working for Atiku Abubakar, he knew my relationship with Ashwaju. That is not hidden anywhere. And there was no time, even in that structure, that I would say anything against Ashwaju. You know where I've come from? I'm a progressive. What we saw in Atiku at that time was that he had what you can call, between the two of them that were running, he had a better national spread in terms of where he's coming from. He's married to his first wife is Mrs. Titi Abubakar from Elisha, who had his first son. He had another wife from the east. He had another wife from where he comes from. So when you look at even his background, you could say that he's more cosmopolitan. And I felt he had what you can call a better appreciation of the country, Nigeria. And I felt that, yes, this is the kind of person who should... Now, but when my bosom friend, Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is on the ballot, it's a completely different...
You're not friends with Atiku? Atiku cannot be considered to be your friend, per se?
Let me repeat myself. I don't want to say this because Bola Ahmed Tinubu is our president. He is a leader of our party, and he's somebody that we have a lot of respect for. But in my own modest interaction with him, you may be shocked to find out that we were one of the people who pleaded with him to run for governor in Lagos. When he came back from exile, he had considered governorship to Wahab Dosumu. They were both on exile. And that he wanted to go back to the Senate. And those of us who were his pals say, Oga, no, we want you to run for the governorship in Lagos. And we did everything that we could to persuade him. And luckily, he accepted. Now, the story of Lagos is a story that we're all proud of. And whether anybody likes it or not, you can't remove Ashwaju's politics, his economic blueprint, the way he has improved the IGL of Lagos, the way the Lagos have been turned around. You cannot but give that credit to him. So, if he now shows interest to replicate that at the federal level, I'll be the first person to jump at it because you can say that he is tested. So that is how it is. I don't have any dilemma at all about it. That does not mean that I have anything against Atiku Abubakar. He's a jolly good fellow.
Let me put you on the spot because you just talked about
please.
Bola Tinubu, whom you believed in and still believe in. You talked about his blueprint. And you're a former governor yourself. And anyone would look at Ogun State with its proximity to Lagos and say Ogun State should be rubbing shoulders with Lagos. Did you have a blueprint? Did you leave a blueprint? Did you leave foundations for successive administrations to build on?
Well, I would have loved that this question is put to other people, because when you ask somebody, what do you expect me to say? But I think it is without any doubt that Ogun State have come a long way. At the inception of administration in 2003, I remember that in the book that I wrote, The Land of My Dreams, what I said was that our state, Ogun State, was a sleeping giant. And I thought, and I said my mission was to awaken the sleeping giant. And what we did in those 8 years, 8 gruesome years, is major. First, we started with a blueprint and a master plan, a 25-year master plan. It's within that framework of that master plan that you are seeing what is going on now, either in terms of the airport being built, the deep sea port, the Dangote refinery that we lost to Lagos, the Gbenga free trade zone that we created, the Flagate free trade zone that we created, the new Olumo Rock that we created, the new secretariat we created, the new Southwest Resource Center, the new Abeokuta Center that we created, and so on and so forth. It's within that framework that we created 4 ICT polytechnics, and it started with about 6 other more, and so on and so forth. It is within that framework that you now have Ogun State. I think I read a report 2 days ago that Ogun State have finally overtaken Lagos in terms of location of industries. Those are things that were not just done overnight. They were things that, as a result of meticulous planning, hard work, building foundation, and that is what the subsequent governors hopefully are building upon. So I remain very, very proud of what we have done, without any doubt. Let me challenge you. There is no areas of life and living in Ogun State that we did not turn around in 8 years. Mention it, we'll tell you what we did. There is no area, whether it's tourism, whether it's sports. Do you remember that we built 3 stadia? Do you remember that FIFA World Club, FIFA Junior World Club was held in Ogun State? Do you remember when Jakwana came and said he's been seeing stadia in Nigeria? The one we are building is in Djibouti excites him. Do you know, as a result of that, Argentina played, Spain played, US played in Djibouti in Ogun State, doing an under-17 World Cup. So that's what we've done in sports. 3 stadia, international FIFA certified. They are still there. You should not forget that the Gateway Games 2006 that we ran, everybody felt that till now. I'm hoping that the one that is coming again in Ogun State will beat the one we've done. But people have said the last Gateway Games, which we did in 2006, 19 years ago, was the best ever in terms of organization, in terms of planning, in terms of financing. In that games, for instance, we declared profit. And we are hoping that the one that is coming 19 years later, also in Ogun State, will be able to at least match or surpass the records that we've created. We can go on and on and on. So I think it's still residual knowledge that is making some people still think Ogun State is where it was. No. I don't think in terms of industrialization now, I don't think there's any state in Nigeria that is ahead of Ogun State.
I think a lot of people would expect a direct impact on the people, which you would see in some of the indices which states are measured: poverty level, standard of living, and
what
all
are the
that.
indices that you're talking about? Do you have it?
Yeah, I talked to you about the unemployment statistics,
I told you that that's
which
wrong.
you disagree with,
No,
even though
that's
from
completely wrong.
the
I know.
NBS.
See, I told you in the course of. See, I went in one of my campaign when I was running with Atiku. We went into a location. It was Kwankwaso who took us there. I think it was local government, about 40 kilometers from Kano. And we finished that campaign at about 6 p.m. and we were driving to Kano. I saw kilometers line up of Almajiris. I'm not saying meters. Kilometers line up of Almajiris on the street, jobless, no future. What are you talking about? It's not even Ogun State. The way you look at those indices along the length and breadth of Nigeria, you find out that state like Ogun State are not doing too badly.
So that brings the question of the level of progress Nigeria is making in the area of development of its citizens. And it would make me bring you to the aspect where you talked about what President Bola Tinubu did as governor of Lagos State and how he's translating that and how you believe he would translate that to the national level. And some would say that he isn't doing as well as he did in Lagos. Some would say that he would have made a better president if he was much younger. And people who would say that would point to the state of the nation at this point. Do you think that President Bola Tinubu is replicating what he did in Lagos?
I think that he's doing very well. I don't agree that he's perfect. But I also think that the biggest challenge that he has is that a large number of our governors are not complementing his efforts. We need to understand and appreciate the structure of government. The sort of thing you will do as governor, the president will not be able to do it. Or for instance, there is a disaster somewhere. A good governor within 12 to 24 hours must get there. It must be action. But people expect the president to say, he's a human being, even if he's much younger than this. At the level of the presidency, it's more about policies and guidelines. The real action point, yes, the ministers have a lot of work to do, but the real action point is at the level of the state. But with due respect, I will say without missing words that our state governors could do better.
In what regard?
In all ramifications. For instance, the expectation of people that to be able to connect with their governors. So somebody said that anytime I sit down, I'm busy with the phone and all of that. It's responding to people's demand. And my phone number is available to the market woman, to the mechanic, to the teacher. Everybody had access. So the things you cannot get done, it's a lot of work, I must confess. The things you cannot get done through the bureaucracy, they bring it straight to my attention. And once it comes to my attention, I can instantly direct that. So it has to be hands-on. For a number of our, look at what President Bola Tinubu have done. At the inception of his administration, there were who and cry about money. He was able to raise the IGR. More money were given to the states. But for many of those states, we didn't see what they did with the money. I have complaints about COVID funds, for instance. We didn't see what they did. So it's easy to blame the president. But is the president the one who is now going to take COVID drugs to a local government? So there is something that is missing there, and that's actually what's actually bringing me back to the need for the Regional Development Commission, because they will be in a position to complement. If, for instance, there are areas where, for whatever reason, whether valid or not, a particular governor is not doing particularly well, there is a regional development that can back up, And I think that it's a wonderful thing that this has happened and the president is backing it. And the president can also, through the regional development organs. So that's an interface.
Is this some form of restructuring? I know you're an advocate of restructuring, but restructuring to different people means different things. I also know that when you were in the PDP, the APC accused the PDP of not showing any intention, having no agenda of restructuring the country. It's now been 10 years of the APC. You are in the APC. Does it look like the APC has an agenda to restructure this country? And what exactly is this restructuring?
Well, I think restructuring cannot be said to be an agenda of either APC or PDP. I think you and I, and virtually all Nigerians, agree that this place needs to be restructured. I think the challenge is the difficulty in amending the Constitution. The crafters of the Constitution have done it in such a way that it's easier for, like they usually say, the camel to pass through the needle hole than for you to restructure, to amend the Constitution. There's a current attempt going on. It's a lot of work, and I'm hoping that, some of those things can actually happen. But whether we like it or not, since we all agreed, everybody agrees, the Constitutional Conference, the last one that was done in 2000, and that was when Jonathan was there. Everybody agreed unanimously there that we need to restructure this country. So if the regional commission is the first step towards some kind of restructuring, so be it. I don't have any apologies. I think it's the way to go.
Okay, so you talk about the constitutional amendment, and there are those who say that we don't need a constitutional amendment, that it's just a routine for the National Assembly, considering the amount of money that goes into the process of amending the Constitution. That instead, we should have a new Constitution. You've lived through the years. You've lived through the military regime. You came into power in 2003, just 4 years after the military rule. Do you agree with those who say that this is a military constitution that's just been amended and we should get a new one instead?
My own position is that the so-called military are Nigerians. And even if we want to have any constitution, either new or old, whether we like it or not, the military is a major component of the Nigerian nation. I dare say probably one of the most important. Look at what is happening all over the world today. We are on the precipice of war. And when that happens, probably the most important set of people is the military. So I am not one of those people who say that, the military constitution, the military are Nigerians. They are you and I, our brothers, our sisters. Those are people that are in the military. They have the same problems that we have. So I really don't look at it from that perspective. I think that and even talking about the military, that constitution was crafted by the best of civilian brains who just happen to have worked with the military. That doesn't take away their brain and their sense of patriotism. Okay, there might be some areas, and having said that, there's also a school of thought that says that, hey, Nigerians require a little bit of iron hand to get things done. Those of us who also run corporate organizations cannot agree more. Because you give people an assignment, you don't go there to monitor it, to do a little bit of shouting. You don't get it done. So there is something in our nature, in our culture, that also allows, these sort of things to happen. So my own position is very, very clear and simple. I do not agree that the constitution is entirely bad. And so, to that extent, we should look at the few areas based on our contemporary experience and see whether we can amend it. I think the biggest issue is that the process of amendment is cumbersome. And I wish that the National Assembly can find a way within the framework of that same constitution. Because the thing is that the country, the world is ruled by law and order. So whatever it is, and we have become very, very sophisticated. But having said all of this, I also believe that a law is as good as the people who run it. When I was governor of Ogun State, I don't have any problem with that constitution. It didn't debar me from anything I wanted to do. You could go to the House of Assembly, lay your program there with superior arguments. They will comply. They will fall in line. They will let it go. But if whatever you are doing has ulterior motives, you have difficulties. So I've never had any issues at all about the Constitution and within the framework of that Constitution. But I tell you, I was someone who believed in free education. I came in as a progressive. Okay, for various circumstances, I ran governorship from a perceived conservative party, PDP, at that time. But the constitution of PDP and APC or AD at that time were virtually the same. And so nothing stops me from doing all my social democratic ideas that I believed in terms of the welfare of the people, the greatest good for the greatest number, in terms of looking at the masses of the people being the center point of our development and our focus. That's what I did in Ogun State, and I had no issues whatsoever.
Okay, let me answer you this question with regard to constitutional amendments. Let me, bring up some of the proposed amendments to the Constitution. The House of Representatives recently passed a bill through second reading and rescinded that decision because they wanted to subject it to some more debate. That bill is a constitutional amendment bill which seeks to remove immunity from the vice president, the governors, and their deputies. And the reason behind this is to curb corruption. What do you think about such a bill, as a former governor yourself?
Well, I know that at some point in time, I said while I was governor, I was ready to remove my immunity, because I must say that I didn't have a particularly good press. That was clearly understood. I came from the blues and upset the system, defeated probably one of the strongest governor who was on seat and all of that. So I knew that I was already looking for, trouble, in quotes, from the establishment. So to that extent, I had challenges with media, but because there were also some rumors that were out there. And at some point in time, I said, well, look, I'm prepared to forgo this so-called immunity. Let's go to court. Because they say I cannot be charged. I also cannot take people to court. I didn't understand it. So, okay, what kind of thing is this? That somebody will be telling blatant lies against me, okay, you say that, yes, that they will not be able to prosecute you, but in the same vein, too, you also cannot personally go and charge somebody who has defamed you. So for a number of those things, I had to wait until after my tenure before I started taking people to call for libel and things like that. Immunity has the good side. But to a large extent, I think some of our elected governors appear to have abused it in terms of some of the things they do. Some of them virtually have turned the state into their personal fiefdom, and they think the property of the state belongs to them. They can do it whichever way they want without even recourse to the House of Assembly. So it has become that bad that if you are not careful, because of this immunity, some of our contemporaries and people seem to be abusing it. What is the solution? It's neither here nor there. There are arguments for, there are arguments against. But if you ask me my heart of heart, I think that only the president and the vice president should be allowed to have absolute immunity so that they can concentrate and so that nobody will be embarrassing the symbol of the country in the international environment for sometimes what can be flimsy excuses. Unfortunately for all of us, they say the internet never forgets. So if somebody writes rubbish about you, it's read all over the world. Most of them will not go and read the aftermath of that. So it's that thing that they read that is keyed in their. So to that extent, I think that the president and the vice president should be excused from all these shenanigans. Coming down, I think that the governors and the deputies should have their immunity clarified. Probably, yes, they cannot be, they have immunity from what you can call criminal prosecution. But there are other things that it's not criminal. There's no reason why they should not be held accountable while in office.
Well, let me ask you about another proposal, which seeks to sort of address the same issue of development and curb corruption and not politicize just about everything. And that is a single 6-year term for the president and governors. Would you subscribe to that?
Well, I've not thought about it. Again, without mincing word, there are pros and cons. The argument is that when you have a first term, naturally you look forward to a second term. So to that extent, because the second term is the test of whether you are successful or not. The general perception is that if you cannot make second term, that means you failed. That means the outright rejection. So everybody will therefore strive to work hard so that they can be accepted to go for second term. So that's there's a good argument in that one. The downside of that is that people then play more politics even during their first term than the real work, because they're just looking forward to the second term. On the contrary, if you now say, okay, you have a 6-year term, so if you don't have the intention of doing well, it's disqualified for you to just do whatever you like. In any case, I'm not coming back and I'm not accountable to anybody. So I'm governor. All right, fine, let's go. So there are pros and cons to that argument. And I think we should look at it very, very carefully before we begin to say this is the way to go or that's not the way to go.
Okay, we're almost out of time now, but I would like to ask you this very important question, which borders on the reputation of you as a senator and the Senate in general. There have been too many issues in recent times with the Senate, and some have described this Senate under Senator Godswill Akpabio as the worst Senate in the history of Nigeria. I also recall that a couple of weeks ago, the senators passed a vote of confidence on Senator Godswill Akpabio's leadership. But how do you react to those who have raised concerns about the reputation of this 10th Senate?
Okay, let me quickly say this to you, and I'm talking with a great sense of responsibility. The Senate, as is constituted, whether you believe it or not, consists of very, very bright, very, very intelligent people. Many of them with a lot of experience about what we can call the Nigerian nation. And there is really no field that I know of, you do not have one expert or the other in that chambers. So the first thing, we need to respect that. Now let me tell you what I think personally about the Senate President. I think he's a great guy. I'm not saying that there's nobody who is perfect. But when you sit in an environment where you are just first among equals, it's quite tough, And all the people that are there have their own objectives, their own perception, their own expectation, their own level of self-worth. A lot of ego is there. So one of the good sides about Akpabio is that he has the capacity to douse tension. He's cracked some jokes which have been completely misunderstood, but he's just being himself, because sometimes the place can be tense. And it's tense for various reasons. And so you need somebody who can occasionally, relax everybody. He's a jolly good fellow, But that does not take away the fact that he's very, very intelligent and quite knowledgeable. He could do with some help. We all could do with some help. But when I see some of those things that he's been accused of, regrettably, it's just perception. And part of what I have recommended to him is that we need to be more deliberate and proactive in terms of our media engagement. This country, the media, with due respect, they can be comma. And I think that what I think he needs to do is to take a second look at, there has to be a lot of proactiveness in the kind of media work that we do. Anybody who is in government now, whether at the level of the executive or the legislature, they are the problem of Nigeria from the perception of Nigerians. They sit on the monies of the country, they spend it recklessly, so they are the one that we have to visit the sin of all of us. So I don't envy anybody who is in government now, because they're the whipping boy. And internet has made it possible that if, for instance, there is a electric spark in your house, you can go and broadcast and say, look at it, they've not done anything. The governor has not done anything. Look, I nearly died because they didn't give me electricity. All sorts of things. So,
that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And it's the same thing I'm saying, that if your wife divorces you now, the first thing is government. Oh, if government have provided me enough job, I will have had enough money to pay my wife.
Which is entirely, which is also almost true as
this
well.
Is the problem. This is the problem. So going forward from there, I just really feel, and I feel like it's seriously, that we just need to be a little more proactive and strategic. We need to be responsive to the yearnings of the people. The yearnings of people are not always right. It is to the extent of their understanding and their appreciation and their personal challenges. Okay? So, yes, that's how it is. But as leaders, we cannot say because we know better than them, so what they're saying does not make sense. We still have to sit with them, explain to them proactively, give them explanations, what they don't know. I can give as an example. There are lots of things that I didn't know when I got into the Senate. I read the Constitution to the best of my knowledge. I've been governor. I know how things are done, and that was not a problem. But there are all sorts of funny rules that are there. If you don't know how to apply those rules, you may find yourself, and they will start quoting the rules for you. So all those things are there. I should complain. I'm sitting at the last row, and I got there and said, "What the hell is this?" Some of the people who are in the Senate many years ago, I sent them to the Senate. I funded, and here I am at the Senate. They say, sorry, whether you are governor for 20 years, that's your business. You are just a jambite here. And so you sit at the back. And then you raise up your hand, you are not called. Why are you not called? It's only the people in the front that they are calling. Why? They say they are experienced. They are more experienced. They understood the system more than us. So we have to quietly wait, and if we have opportunity, it is part of how it is there. And it is a system that people usually say, if you want to take on the system, you have to understand the system. So that's where we are. My summary is that it's quite unfortunate that the perception out there is what it is. But I think we have a good Senate president going forward.
Senator Gbenga Daniel, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on Political Paradigm, and thank you for squeezing out this time to come speak with us.
Thank you very much. It's been quite exciting speaking to you. Thank you very much, viewers.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all the time we have on Political Paradigm. Thank you for your time as well. I've been speaking with Senator Gbenga Daniel, who represents Ogun East in the Senate as a former governor of Ogun State from 2003 to 2011. If you'd like to catch this episode and more, please go to YouTube and search Political Paradigm or go to channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.